So yeah, welcome everybody. I'm Andy Newsome. I'm the VP of Drilling Services for XI Technologies. We are here to talk today about the new CAPP guidelines that were released back in July of this year. Obviously, the product that we serve in the H2S search is built around those original CAPP guidelines. So naturally, our ears would perk up when a new version of those guidelines come out. We commonly get a lot of questions that have actually been addressed in these new CAPP guidelines, and obviously since the guidelines have been released, we've been getting a lot of questions. So as we've been going over those guidelines and talking to a lot of clients, we figured what better forum than this to one, educate all of our clients on those guidelines, to help everybody understand the tools that are available to comply with those regulations, and just generally get some discussion among the group. I mean, if we're answering a question for one client, and if that answer can help everybody, awesome. So so we get everybody in the room. Let's get. I'm hoping to get a little bit of discussion as well near the end. Just wanted to get everybody's opinions and feedback on the product and on the CAPP guidelines themselves. Okay, so just a couple notes before we dive in. H2S, it is obviously, and don't really need to preach too heavily, but it is a very important topic for public safety, very important topic for regulatory compliance, and it's just my public note, just let's all do our best to understand the regulations and the guidelines, and not only just to follow the rules that have been laid out, but this is obviously a very important topic for industry to understand and respect. The ERCB, they're starting to notice a lot of trends developing in terms of what some things that they'd like to see corrected in terms of how people are doing their H2S release rate assessments, and so I'm going to be touching on a couple of those things today. Yeah, there's a few things that we can do to correct some of the industry habits in terms of H2S release rates. So today, what we're hoping to accomplish is to once again stress the importance of due diligence when you're going through an H2S release rate assessment and appreciating the data that's being used to come up with those numbers. Educate everybody on the regulations and the guidelines. Ease a little bit of anxiety around H2S release rates. There's a bit of a misnomer out there that because the ERCB does pay so much attention to this stuff, that a lot of people just kind of get scared of the whole process. And there's a lot of concepts that we will be going over today that it's not rocket science. Anybody can do a lot of the work that's laid out. The biggest problem out there is not the difficulty involved, it's about just the attention that needs to be paid to the process. And then finally, just we are going to be touching a little bit on the H2S search throughout this, just helping understand the tools that are available as you work through the process. Okay, so just a quick note on today's session. We're going to be focusing on where our experience lies most, which is obviously on the data sampling and the collection of the information. And this is what, from our perspective, where we understand the biggest pain points are in the industry. So this will not be a full review of the CAPP guidelines. We're going to be focusing on sections 1 to 4. Those sections are the process flow, an H2S release rate assessment, a geological review, and the data sampling and analysis. The sections 5 and 6, those kind of stretch beyond the scope of what XI gets involved with. So certainly if you do have questions, we have someone here that can help answer those specific engineering and engineering adjustments and geological review as well. And yeah, we are going to be doing a high-level review though. So whatever I can cover in the course of an hour, we'll do our best. But I do want to stress that we are going to, hoping that everybody is going to take the time to read through the document still. Okay, so just a quick little review of the agenda. I'm going to touch a little bit on the history of the CAPP guidelines so you can appreciate where the guidelines came from and how it's brought us to today. The bulk of the presentation, of course, is going to be getting into the CAPP guidelines and walking through what's been laid out. And then we're going to get into a little bit of a question and answer period. We have Todd Wilson here from Bear Energy Services. He is one of the co-authors of the actual CAPP guidelines. So some of the areas where I can't actually answer, Todd's going to be able to step in and help out there. Anything I may have missed, by all means, come in and correct me if I've missed anything there. And just generally good for Todd to get a first-hand look at the industry's acceptance and the adoption of the guidelines. So we do have Todd Wilson here to speak to us, or speak with us at around 11. And then afterwards, for those who can stick around, we would like to have you just in a more informal discussion. We'd like to get your feedback on well, today's session and on the CAPP guidelines, and just how the H2S search can better serve your needs as well. We have a few ideas that we're throwing around these days, and we'd love to get your thoughts on those ideas, and if there's any other ideas and concepts that we can start to move towards, love to hear what you have to say. Okay, so just getting into the little bit of the history. Todd gave me a history lesson in 10 minutes or less, so sorry if I miss a detail or two here. In 1997, the ERCB was holding a meeting to discuss the lack of consistency on H2S release rate assessments. Some of the CAPP board, in that meeting there were some CAPP board members present, and some of those guys had volunteered to head up a committee to create an industry standard. So that industry standard trying to establish a baseline for regulators to define what is proper and diligent, and build some rules around these. Also helping the industry build some industry standards and help them understand how to comply to those regulations and guidelines, but also build some standards and common language for everybody to understand and appreciate. So, so with that, the original document was released in 1998. Now, 5 years later, the ERCB released Guide 56, which is now called Directive 56. And a lot of those principles were adopted, written right into the regulations, but not only that, but specific references are being made to the CAPP guidelines. So in doing so, they've built a very strong relationship between the two documents. So with that relationship, very important that everybody's, both documents speak the same language and they are representing the same message. Now in 2010, it was starting to be recognized and realized that the two documents are being interpreted in two different ways. So obviously if people are trying to use both and trying to figure out what is required of them, and there might be some misinterpretation or conflicting messages, important that we clean that up. So CAPP had brought the committee back together in 2010, and they agreed that it was time to update the CAPP guidelines. So in the words of CAPP, the guidelines exist to clarify the requirements, streamline methodologies, establish some best practices for proper H2S release rates, and provide some template forms and template forms for data capture and reporting. Now, to the excise side, in 2000, having learned about the CAPP guidelines, we started seeing an opportunity for us to step in and help the industry. Looking through those CAPP guidelines, what is it going to take for an applicant to follow those guidelines to a T? It would take an enormous amount of time and effort to search for the necessary data. So in 2000, we stepped in, we built what is now considered the H2S Gold, and we have been supporting that product as it supports the Directive 56 H2S release rate assessment guidelines and also the CAPP guidelines. So hence today's session.